and 49 from SAT number 13. And here we have another paired question. And this is also kind of a challenging paired question because, again, like the other one in this passage, it requires us to go do a little bit of back and forth between 48 and 49, between the answer choices for 49 and 48. And so instead of being able to choose a text from the second half of the question with confidence and then choose 48 in a very straightforward process, there's a little bit of back and forth going on. So it's a good question to look at to develop some of your strategies. So let's check it out. 48 says, based on the passage, which choice reflects behaviors unlikely to be exhibited by an individual finch? So unlikely, that's pretty clear. So we're looking for behaviors that are unlikely for an individual finch. And what we can do is we can go through the text for 49 and look for a text that we think could answer this. So we're looking for something that will tell us what it's unlikely for an individual finch to do. And we could get lucky. It could tell us, there could only be one answer choice that really explains the difference. Or as we'll see, there could be multiple texts that could explain it. So we'll have to maybe go in reverse. But let's check it out first. So 49, A says 72 to 74, which says, what is surprising about these results is that aggression does not correlate with risk-taking behavior. So what this tells us is that aggression and risk-taking behavior, which I think they're pretty much measuring in terms of approaching food after a predator display, right? After they send over the silhouette of the predator, and then also the approach of novel objects. And they're saying these two things, they don't correlate, they don't go together. So this could tell us something that it's unlikely for an individual finch to do if it is exhibiting aggression and risk-taking behavior that might be unlikely. So this could work. 78 through 80 says, thus selection could favor more conspicuous red-headed birds taking fewer risks. This could be used as well if they're going to highlight how red-headed birds are conspicuous and yet it's taking more risk. It could be used, although it's kind of explaining the evolutionary logic more than it's giving us the facts on the ground that will tell us individual differences, but it could still work too. It's not too clear. 81, 84 says, interestingly, boldness and risk-taking behaviors were found to be strongly correlated regardless of the head color. They always occur together, forming a behavioral syndrome. This is basically saying what we do expect to see together is boldness and risk-taking behaviors, which are the two behaviors of approaching after a predator display, approaching food, and then approaching novel objects. So this one could work as well if we show that there's a bird exhibiting a risk-taking behavior in this way, but not a risk-taking behavior in that way. 89, 83 says, this makes sense when you consider the high risk of predation faced by red-headed birds. If they take too many risks and the need for black-headed birds to find food away from the dominant redheads, which occupy the safest foraging locations. This could, in this case, this is referring to favoring aggression and boldness. This could also work too. If we have the right text in this case. If the text is going to be talking about the fact that about aggression and this behavioral syndrome, so we can check those out. But the thing is, we don't know. It's impossible. We can't choose a text for 49 yet. So what we can do is jump into 48 and see if we can solve that first. So, and it says unlikely to behaviors that are unlikely to be exhibited by an individual finch. What we're basically, in each of these choices, we're given two characteristics: returning quickly to feeding after a predator display, and failing to approach a novel object. Returning slowly to feeding and failing to approach, failing to display aggression, blah, 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 blah. These are basically two different behavioral characteristics or behavioral behaviors, and they're putting them together and saying which pairing is going to be unlikely. So already in our mind, we should just say, okay, we kind of know what black-headed finches do, we kind of know what red-headed finches do, and let's see what the ones that go together are. And instead of trying to remember them all, we might sketch a note, or we could remember them, but I just put them here so that we know. The red-headed finches are more aggressive, slower to return, and less interest in novel objects. Black-headed finches are less aggressive, quicker to return, more interest in novel objects. So we're going to look for the pairing in the answer choices that violate this. So let's see. So A says returning quickly, feeding after a predator display, which would match black-headed finches, and failing to approach a novel object, which would match red-headed finches. So this is actually something that would be unlikely because here we see that This bird is quick to return after predator spray like a black-headed finch, but doesn't want to approach a novel object like a red-headed finch. So this would be unlikely. A is a good choice. This B says returning slowly to feeding after a predator display, which is like a red-headed finch, and failing to approach a novel object, which is like a red-headed finch as well, less interest. So this one would be likely, so it's not our answer choice. C says failing to display aggression, like a black-headed finch, and readily approaching a novel object, like a black-headed finch. So this would also be likely, and therefore not our answer choice. D says displaying aggression, which is our red-headed finch, and being uninterested in exploring the surroundings, less interest in novel objects, like a red-headed finch. So this one would also be likely, so it's not our answer choice. So from this, we're able to narrow down A. A is the only one that would be unlikely. And now what we have to do is choose a text that says that we need, it's unlikely for a bird to return quickly to feeding after predator display and failing to approach a novel object. And there's only two answer choices that really could only kind of work. First is A, 7274, which says what is surprising about these results is that aggression does not correlate with risk-taking behavior. Or C, which says, interestingly, boldness and risk-taking behaviors are found to be strongly correlated regardless of head color. And basically, each of these are saying here's these two behavioral correlations or these characteristics that correlate and what we should expect to see together. What we should notice, though, is that A is talking about the fact that aggression doesn't correlate with the risk-taking behavior of finding a new novel object or returning to feed after a predator display. But our choice here is really only talking about predator display and novel object, only talking about risk-taking behavior and not about aggression. So A actually wouldn't work too well. So C, interestingly, boldness and risk-taking behavior were found to be strongly correlated. This is going to be our answer choice. Because what this is saying is that these two behaviors, the novel, approaching novel objects and approaching food after a predator display, should be correlated. They should go together. So it would be unlikely for them to not go together. So A and C are going to be our answer choices.